According to the agricultural census, this is a hog farm. It's one number in a very large total number. According to the agricultural census, this is a hog farm. It too counts as one number in that large total number. The agricultural census defines this as a dairy farm. It counts as one number in a very large total number. The same census defines this as a dairy farm. It also counts as one number in a very large total number. According to the agricultural census, this is a cattle feeding operation. It's counted as one in a very large total number. According to the same agricultural census, this is a cattle feeding operation. Again, counting as one in that large total number. From region to region, state to state, county to county, even neighbor to neighbor, the definition of a pork producer or beef feeder or dairy operator can change enormously. One man can barely be hanging on, while nearby is another man planning to double his size next year. When you look at the boxcar numbers, they don't tell you which is which. Each man adds one to the total. But to the agri-marketer, the difference between the two is a matter of make or break. And here's why.
I don't really need any credit for this size operation, but if I was going to enlarge and specialize, I suppose then I would have to have credit, specialized credit that probably be borrowing every year. I breed about 16 gilts every fall, and then I'll farrow them in the spring. I'll maybe come out with about 250 hogs a year, average. One time you don't get as many as the next. Well, for animal health care, it'd be a couple $100 a year, maybe for veterinary, and another 100 or 200 for different types of things such as wormer and vaccines and things like that. I think I'm about one of the smallest. Get much smaller, I don't think you'd want to be in it. I'll probably expand in time. I hope to. I'll either expand or quit, one or the other.
Well, my operation right now will consist of about 3,500 to 4,000 hogs a year. Usually about 1,600 on the place at all times. But I started out with about 400 on the place at all times. Animal health cost per year would be about $1,800 to $2,000 through the feed, and a lot of it through the water. Well, I invested $40,010 for the first setup. That included a 36 by 90 building and a 20 by 60 harvest store, and floor drops, feed on the floor every 2 hours, manure pits, totally enclosed, $40,010. I would definitely automate so that you don't have to pay a hired man. It costs a lot of money, but it increased my ability to handle more hogs than any one man could ever do in a year's time. It helps me produce 4,000 hogs a year and farm 360 acres alone with my little boy and myself.
Well, I would say that probably the small dairyman is going to be eliminated because of the cost of the Environmental Protection Agency rules and the other government regulations on quality, and that the cost is going to be prohibitive for the amount for a small dairyman. You have to spread it out over more cows to make it pay out. I was on our local creamery board, it's a co-op creamery, and 6 years ago we had something like 170 or 180 producers. And as of the spring we was down to less than 70. Well, I've gradually increased my herd up to about, from 24 to 27, something like that. On a small operation, you have to have a little bigger margin or you can't operate. Now, that's all there is to it.
Vince, what kind of an investment is required to run a dairy operation such as you have here right now?
Well, we have $75,000 tied up in cattle, $40,000 for feed storage, silage, grain, and approximately $100,000 worth of machinery for feeding animals and working land. Buildings, we have around $40,000–50,000 in buildings.
And how many cows are we talking about here in this dairy cattle operation?
We have 120 milk cows.
How many cows are you going to?
Around 220 at this time. This is our new milking parlor. It's built as a diamond. There'll be 6 cows on every edge. They handle them in groups of 6, but there'll be 24 ahead of us at all times. We'll do about 140 to 160 cows an hour. We're only doing about 30 an hour now. It'll save a lot of time. This is all manure pits. There'll be slats on top of them, and there'll be a roof over the whole works.
And I suppose this is to meet the EPA pollution standards, right?
That's right.
How much would you estimate in terms of dollars is invested just to meet those standards in that manure operation?
There's about $20,000 in that project.
And again, what are we talking about in terms of total dollars?
Around $200,000.
Does it scare you as a big operator to see these kind of risks facing you up ahead?
It scares me, but it don't worry me too much.
Why do you say that?
Because I just like challenges, I guess.
If I raise my own feed, and this year I'll figure between 8 to 10,000 bushel of shell corn, and I put up between 5 to 600 ton of corn silage. I usually feed between 175 to 200 head. To purchase the cattle, this year I spent around $60,000. For veterinary expense, I've been quite fortunate. This year, including the shots that I gave when they came into the lot, I suppose it'll run me so far as about $150 to $175. And as far as expansion, I have a boy in college. He has 1 more year left, and he would like to go farming, but prospects don't look too bright, so I really wouldn't know.
Well, the finances required to run a cattle operation where we feed out approximately 800 head of cattle a year would require in the neighborhood of $240,000 just to buy the cattle. Added to that, facilities such as this would cost in the neighborhood of $30,000. We would need about another $4,000 or $5,000 for manure disposal equipment, and probably another $6,000 for a feed wagon. You would also have to have storage facilities for your crops and silage and things like that. So you would end up within the neighborhood of $300,000. We line up the financing to operate this business through our local bank in Blue Earth. They have guaranteed me $180,000 for the purchase of the cattle and to take care of them. We raise the feed for this cattle feeding operation. Out of 1,000 crop acres, we plant about 650 acres to corn. This corn will normally yield about 120 bushels per acre. The cattle this size, we normally budget about 50 bushels per head. This would require then about 40,000 bushel of corn per year. We have $100 an acre invested in the machinery. This is depreciated out over 10 years. We also have a $30 an acre fertilizer cost. Add to this $10 an acre for chemicals and your seed cost and a land charge. This will bring it up to about $200 an acre to grow this corn. We're in the cattle business to stay. We do have quite an investment in land and facilities, and we do have some know-how. We may make some adjustments and changes in that we increase our numbers or even decrease. They could be larger cattle or smaller, or we may even go to custom feeding.
Although these men total 6 in the agricultural census, the big operators differ from the small operators in about 5 important ways. First, the big operator looks at farming as a profit-maximizing business rather than just as a way of life. He deals with agricultural production and inputs in about the same way that a man who runs a factory would think about them. To him, making money is primary. That's why he's there. Secondly, because the big operator is a profit maximizer, he tends to be an early adopter. He looks at a new idea or practice and says, if I can adopt that new idea now, before it becomes a factor in the market, I will get greater unit returns than after the market adjusts to the fact that it's there. Third, the big operator doesn't think about borrowed money in the same way the small operator does. To the small operator, it is a debt, a burden, and a threat. To the big operator, borrowed money is credit, a useful production tool. Fourth, the big operator plays a very unique role in the flow of information of new ideas and practices. He is not only the biggest purchaser of farm supplies and products, he is the first. More times than not, the big operator is the one who gives the first demonstration of new ideas and practices to other farmers in the community. He, in effect, provides the information required to get the small operator into the process of adopting new ideas and technology. And finally, because of his attitude on farming as a business, the big operator thinks of time as money. So when he requires information, he looks for specialized sources that will give him the concise information and facts that he needs when he needs them.
There's another big difference in these 6 operators. By virtue of their size, the big operators qualify as recipients of hog farm management, dairy herd management, and feedlot management, the 3 agri-vertical publications of the Miller Publishing Company, Minneapolis, Minnesota. Miller has been publishing for the specialized interests of specialized audiences for more than 100 years. And when you've been at something for 100 years, you get pretty good at it.
Gene and I are out on the farm quite a bit, and I've never really been thrown off one yet. And it's just a matter that they're involved in the industry, and you go out and they want you there. They want people to know what they're doing and why they're doing it. It's a matter of real interest in the hog and dairy and feedlot business.
We're involved in what they're involved in. I mean, we have to know what they want, and we deliver it.
Well, this is what makes the publication the one that they should pick up first when it arrives in the mail, because if they're a hog feeder, they want to read that hog publication and get directly at the subject matter and not have to wade through a lot of extraneous material to find out what's the latest in hog feeding.
Well, the other feedback we get certainly is through our circulation efforts and the responses that we get from readers. Well, we probably have close to 110,000 readers who have requested the publication. So that's, I feel, certainly an indication that they want to receive the magazine.
Right now, we are planning the editorial content of hog farm management, dairy herd management, and feedlot management 5 years, 3 months, a month ahead of publication. We do this through the rapport and confidence that we have with our readers. We must plan to give them what they need.
We determine what our readers want and need in the way of management information in a number of ways. One of those is through research conducted here at Miller in the form of questionnaires and phone calls to the different producers who read our magazines. A second way is through association with the different hog, dairy, and beef associations. They're in close contact with Washington, and we get a lot of input from them. And we also have 2 full-time editors that work in Washington. And a third way, and probably the most exciting and interesting for me as an editor, is personal contact, one-to-one association with the producers in the field and on their farms. In that way, we can determine the editorial package that will best suit these people who are into specialized production of animals.
The differences in the informational needs of our readers versus those of other agricultural publications boils down to one of specialization. First of all, we know that our readers are raising hogs in the case of hog farm management. Secondly, we know that they're doing it on a volume basis. They're raising a lot of hogs, and we know that our readers are marketing over 1,000 hogs per year. So right away, we know what our readers are doing. We know on what size they're doing it, so we can provide them with specialized information that deals only with hog production.
Specialized livestock publications help me in several ways. For one thing, they do provide ideas. They also provide ways to analyze my business compared to what others are doing. I do answer quite a few ads in there too. These ads are filed in the filing cabinet. The magazines may be around my home for a month, they could be 6 months, and some of them are even there a year.
Feedlot management is written for some 20,000 cattle feeders who market 81% of the beef every year. 75% of the recipients are farmer feeders. Hog farm management goes to 46,000 of the nation's major hog producers, who produce 52% of the nation's pork. Dairy herd management is edited for 55,000 of the nation's largest dairymen, who produce 56% of our milk. Dairy herd management, hog farm management, and feedlot management reach readers who not only raise or feed most of the country's livestock, but who also farm more than 75 million acres of land every year. Special men, special interests, big buyers, the men others turn to for advice. You get directly to them with Miller Agriverticals. They've made possible a whole new approach to media planning. The old way was to buy broad mass coverage, all the numbers, and then use any surplus money for a token schedule in specialized vertical publications. But Miller Agriverticals have turned that outdated method completely around. Now many media schedules start from the other end, solid schedules that assure frequency and impact with the big operators who account for more than half the market potential and strongly influence the remainder. Surplus dollars are then spent on shotgun, broad coverage publications that get to all the farmers. But that's not all of the Miller Publishing story, nor all of your marketing communications job.
In the 25 years that I've been doing research, there's been a dramatic change in the sources of information that farmers use at the various stages in the adoption process. For example, 15 years ago, less than 5% of the farmers used their local farm store dealers as a source of information on new farming practices. In our most recent study, we found that nearly 45% of the farmers are now using their local dealer as a viable source of information. The main reason why the dealer has taken on this new importance is that he keeps informed. Today's successful local dealer attends a wide variety of meetings where credible information is given out. And he's reading specialized publication that gives him the facts that he can use in dealing with his customers. You see, he knows that when he deals with that farmer, he better be right, because if he isn't, he's not going to get a second chance.
We've been in business here 26 years, and I'd say that farmers that do come in do depend upon our background and experience in helping make decisions. I believe that the smaller farmers that come into our store probably need a little more information than the larger farmers who are quite well posted. Farm store magazines are very important in our business because of the new developments and new chemicals and new feeds that come on the market.
Miller provides you with a direct line to the farm store dealer with farm store merchandising. Approximately 33,000 dealers depend upon this magazine for current information on business and merchandising practices involving feed, fertilizer, farm chemicals, and all related supplies sold at retail. These dealers average $585,000 per outlet per year and account for 85% of the farm store market. When it's all said and done, the single largest farm production expense, surpassing all others, is feed. Feed is a multi-billion-dollar industry encompassing almost every facet of agribusiness. And Miller has the avenue to the market with feedstuffs. It's the one authoritative publication the feed and feeding industry relies upon for up-to-the-minute news on livestock markets, commodities, trends in agriculture, management practices. Feedstuffs has earned the reputation as the weekly newspaper for agribusiness. Because every agribusiness operation is different, you need precise communications tools that will reach the men who can make or break your marketing plan. The Miller publications reach precisely the people you must communicate with, the big operators, the opinion shapers, the retail marketers, the manufacturers who need your products. The true power of Miller publications starts with knowledgeable editing, tailored to the unique needs of these unique men. And underlying it all is more than a century of editorial leadership, the grassroots experience that equips the Miller Publishing Company to help agriculture and agricultural marketers get where they're going.